How are you? My name, Eric Pettigo. I'm a realtor at the Real Estate Group in Springfield, Illinois, and this is Real Estate for Real. I appreciate you tuning in. Doing things a little bit different this week. I've done like 20 some episodes of this, and on every single one so far, I've had guests. I've had other realtors joining me on the podcast, and we just talk about real estate stuff. It's just, that's kind of been the whole point of the show, is just a couple of realtors, or maybe, three, and we just talk about the business. And it's been super fun, and there's going to be a lot more of that coming up. I've got more guests lined up, more amazing realtors to talk to, more fun stories to tell, all sorts of experiences to go over and all that stuff. But I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I want to start mixing a few of these in where I don't have any guests, and we'll see how it goes. I like to talk to other people. I feel like it can be more fun and entertaining that way. But what I've noticed is that this podcast has been a real estate podcast for realtors, which I'm totally cool with, and I like it, and I appreciate all of my realtor friends who listen and enjoy it and look forward to it coming out every week. But another thing I want to do, something that I kind of had in mind when I thought about doing this podcast, was talking about the business for people who are not in real estate. And not just the business, but real estate itself. So people looking to get into the housing market, people wanting to buy, wanting to sell, not sure what to do, maybe have had some bad experiences and need to learn about what could have made that better, and how we can change that moving forward, and just kind of educate people on, at least through my lens of what this is and what it could be. So I thought this week, let's just start from the beginning. Let's just say you are a first-time buyer buying your first house in real estate. What do you do? So that's kind of what I wanted to get into. And then if I have time, I don't know how long this is going to go. I mean, how long can someone just talk to themselves? I mean, if it's me, it could be a while, but I've only got so much life on this battery. So, but for a first-time buyer, and here's something, and I know people have been hearing this a lot, and it's out there, and if you get on the internet and you read, you see that people can't buy houses right now. Everything's too expensive. I can't afford a house. The younger generation coming in, and I know things are expensive, and that is a very real thing. But what I always tell people when they say, I can't even buy a house right now, things are so expensive, is I say, have you tried? Have you gone down that road at all? Have you even looked into it? Have you talked to a bank? Have you talked to a lender? Right? Do you know what your credit score is? Do you have a bunch of debt? Have you tried, or are you just reading and hearing and believing that you can't buy real estate right now? Because honestly, maybe you can't. Not everybody can, and that's just a fact. But I do think there are a lot of people who don't think that they can, who might be able to. Are you paying rent right now somewhere? Credit to my wife for making this point when we were talking earlier. She's amazing. But if you can afford rent right now, rent is crazy. And I know a lot of people can't, right? That's another thing you see a lot of people can't afford rent. And that is true. But if you are paying rent right now and not believing that you could own property, you might be wrong. and it's worth a conversation, which is what I always tell people. It's worth the conversation. Talk to a lender. Find a realtor, talk to a lender, and at least see if it's an option, right? And so that's kind of what we're going to do, is go through those steps. So the absolute first step you take if you are thinking about possibly buying a house, who do you call? Realtor or lender, right? I've had a few lenders on this podcast, and I know how they would answer. And I've talked to a bunch, and they say, I don't know why people go to you guys first. I don't know why they don't come to us. You have to be pre-approved, right? Well, if somebody's never bought a house before, if you've never bought real estate before, I believe, and maybe I'm a little bit biased. My computer is going off here. I'm going to turn that. But maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think you find a realtor first, right? Realtors, and you guys know this, we are somewhat of a one-stop shop for all things house. Like, we know people who do almost everything related to houses. So I always say, call me first before anything. Call your realtor. Find a realtor, call them, and then they can help you get in touch with some good local lenders that'll put you in the right position. But first things first, just make that phone call. All right, we've established first things first, get a realtor. So how do we do that? How do we find a good realtor? Well, ideally it's me. But if it's not me, then somebody at our company. We're awesome. But what I've seen a lot of people do, and I've talked about this a lot, is they'll hop on social media and they'll on Facebook and they'll say, hey guys, looking for a good realtor. Any suggestions? And then there's like 75 comments. And every single one of them swears that their realtor is the best realtor. And while that can't technically be true, to them, I'm sure it is. To them, whatever realtor they're recommending to you, to them, they feel like is the best realtor. And that's great. That's awesome. It should be like that. That so many realtors are doing such a great job for so many of their clients that people just buck up for us and say, hey, they're the best, use them. Awesome. But for you, as somebody looking to get into the housing market and wanting to buy something, looking for a realtor, it doesn't really make it easier on who you pick. So if you jump on and you say, hey, you know, who's a realtor, and you get 3 or 4 recommendations, okay. But when you get 84 recommendations, that's tough. So then who really is the best? Hard to tell. So what I always tell people to do is ask the people closest to you. Ask your friends and your family. Who did you use when you used a realtor? How did that go? Right? And if that's not an option, if you don't have friends and family in the area and you do have to do something like post on social media and you get the 130 responses of everybody's realtor is the best realtor, and then all of those realtors that get tagged chime in and say, hey, thanks for tagging me. And then they say to the poster, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you. And then some of them even slide straight into your DMs and just try to initiate conversation that way. And that's what happens when you make those posts. But the thing to do is somehow, some way, narrow that list down to maybe 9 or 10. I know that's a lot, but have conversations, and I promise you it'll be worth it. Just make a phone call and let them know, hey, I'm talking to a bunch. I'm trying to find out who's best for me. I'm having a lot of conversations, and ask questions. Get to know them. Take as much time as you need. All your concerns, all your questions, ask them. How good of a job do they do at answering your questions? Making you feel comfortable with the whole process. How available are they going to be? Ask them. If a house hits the market in 5 minutes from now and I call you and say, I want to go see it, how soon before you can get me in on a normal day? You need to know. So that stuff's important, but finding a realtor, if you don't have a lot of friends or family in the area that can recommend somebody good to you, It can be tricky. So have those conversations. But I promise you, even though it might seem tedious, it's going to be, you are making the biggest purchase of your life. You need somebody that you trust and you're comfortable with to be there with you, helping you out with that process. And even if you do get good recommendations from your friends and family for one person, sure, talk to them, but talk to more. I always do it. Always talk to several people before you lock in and say, you're my person. And especially now because you have to sign an agreement saying that that person is your realtor. So, but you don't have to sign an agreement to have a conversation. So have the conversation. Trust me, you'll be happy that you did. And it can be overwhelming when you're looking and you get so many responses about how great we all are. Which again is super cool that happens. You don't see that with many other professions, but anytime you see a realtor post, that's what it is. So you found your realtor. Congratulations. Now what? Now what do you do? Okay, well, we're going to put you in touch with a lender if you don't already have one. And if you do, that's fine, right? I get a lot of people who come to me and they say, I'm already pre-approved. I'm ready to go house shopping. All right. But I'm always going to ask, who are you pre-approved with? And that matters. It really, really matters. And if you just got online and it's I'm not going to name anybody, but some national company, and all you had to do was hop on their website or download their app and click a few things, and all of a sudden, pre-approved. Let's go get a house. Yeah, not so much. Not always. I mean, sometimes, but not always. You see, a pre-approval is not loan approval. The pre-approval is something that'll get you in the door. But some of these lenders, and especially the big national ones, the big chains that are all over the country that, you can't walk into the office and actually talk to your loan officer. They'll just pump those things out like crazy. Pre-approval. It's like they're volume shooters. And so they'll give you a pre-approval, and the vetting process is pretty easy. And maybe there's something on your credit. Maybe there's something, that is going to hold up the whole transaction eventually that they don't catch at that point. And then you go through the whole process. You find a house. You spend all this time, you and your realtor, looking at all these houses. You find the right one. You make the offer. It gets accepted. You go through inspections. You pay for all your inspections. The appraisal happens. All that stuff's good. And then a couple weeks before you close, your file lands on the desk of the underwriter. And if you don't know who the underwriter is, no one does. Only the banks do. And I did a podcast with my friend Natalie Dotson, who's a lender at IMB, and she's awesome. But we talked about the secrecy of the underwriters and how you have to scan your retina to get into the room. And they're down there in the basement in some corner, and nobody ever sees them. And they don't see daylight. They're just these strange creatures whose only job they just shut down deals sometimes. I'm sorry, underwriters. I don't mean to be mean to you, but that happens. But their job, in all honesty, is to make sure that every single box is checked and we are clear to close. And when you find yourself a good local lender, they do a thorough vetting process on the front end. And they make sure before they send us out looking at houses to get your hopes up, to find you the right house, they make sure that the chances of anything going wrong later in the transaction are minimal. And you don't get that with the big companies. You just don't. It's not there. The actual, I don't know what it is, the care that goes into it. It just isn't there. It can't be. It's too big of an operation. They can't put all of the attention on each individual transaction that they need to. Not always, not all the time. We've all closed plenty of transactions with these big companies. It happens. They don't all fall apart, obviously, or they wouldn't be in business. But the likelihood is much higher. And so we always prefer going through somebody local. So when you call me and you say I'm pre-approved, I'm going to ask with who. And if you tell me, one of these companies that I've had bad experiences with, I will ask, and it's not my decision, it's yours, but I will ask, would you mind talking to someone local? Someone I know will make sure we are good to go and buy a house. And I will strongly, strongly recommend it every single time. Now, if you come to me and you're not pre-approved, which is fine. Like I said, I thoroughly, fully believe you call a realtor first. When you decide to even start to get into the market, call a realtor. I will put you in touch. I will give you a list of people that I've worked with dozens of times, at least, who I know will do a good job for you. And again, just like when you're talking to realtors, you go talk to these lenders. You have conversations. And who do you feel best about working with? And that's who you pick. You work with them. You go through the whole pre-approval process. And if you're a first-time buyer, I know it seems like a lot, and it is a lot. But there are a lot of questions that you ask that your lender is going to be able to answer for you. It's the type of financing you get is super important, right? Are you conventional? Are you FHA? Are you going to get a VA loan? Are you a veteran? Thank you for your service. Are you going that route? And a lot of people don't know this, but most of your local lenders, your local banks, they can do VA loans. A lot of people think they have to go through one of these national VA companies, but you don't. You can walk right into your local bank and get a VA loan. And it's typically a much smoother process. And the type of loan you get, it affects the offer that you make. Like it can. And so, going in, like there's nothing wrong with an FHA loan, right? However, just like a VA loan or a rural development loan, the process can sometimes be a little bit tougher than a conventional loan. There are certain things that the appraiser is going to look for and point out with those types, with the FHA, the VA, the rural development, that they're going to point out sometimes things that might need repaired. If there's no handrail on the steps, or, something with they're peeling paint, if there's any exposed wood on the exterior, anything like that, they are going to make sure that stuff gets fixed before they approve the loan and push everything through. Whereas if you're conventional, more or less, it's just going to be evaluation of the property. How much is it worth? Yep. Numbers look good. Go ahead. So that can strengthen or weaken your offer, but it's good to know because there are pros and cons. There's benefits to all these. So all these conversations you're going to have with your lender. All right. First time buyers. We're doing good. We've about got you in a house. So congratulations. It's only been 18 minutes. We've already almost got you a house. That's pretty good. Not bad. So you found your realtor. We've got you hooked up with the lender. You're talking about the types of loans you're going to get. You get your pre-approval. So we can get moving, right? You got your pre-approval. It says you're good up to this amount. So let's go house shopping. Remember that amount, right? Let's just put a number out there. Let's say you're pre-approved for $275,000. Awesome. We'll find you a good place for $275,000. So we go and we find you one, $274,900. How about that? We got you $100 less than you're pre-approved for. What a deal, right? It's great. Everything's perfect. It checks out. It's where you want it to be. The size is right. Everything's good. So we'll write up an offer. We get it accepted. Awesome. And then you give it to your lender and you say, hey, look, here's my contract. We're good. Everything's set. And then you find out what your monthly payment's going to be. Ugh. Well, that's more than you wanted to pay, right? So the next lesson, especially for a first-time buyer, your pre-approval amount may not be what you want to spend. So you find out from your lender what you're approved to buy. What price range are we shopping? And then when they tell you, when you get that letter, you go back to them and you say, hey, great. How much will my payments be? Right? That's a huge question because before we go out and write any offers, we want to know that you are comfortable paying that amount per month. And sometimes you're not. And believe it or not, a lot of times you aren't. A lot of people, when they find out what they can spend, but find out how much that's going to cost them per month, don't want to spend that amount. So a lot of times, whatever your pre-approval amount is, we scale that back a little bit. And that's okay. That's what needs to happen. It's a big purchase. You don't want to be house poor. That's what they call it. When all you can pay for is your house and nothing else, that is a horrible place to be in. If you're locked in on a 30-year mortgage and you can't afford anything but your house payment and you can't go on vacations and, ramen's delicious. Don't get me wrong. Like, we like the shrimp flavor one around here, but you can't just live on that. It's like a delicacy that you can only have from time to time. But the next question is, how much can you afford per month? How much are you comfortable paying? And then we go shop in that price range. And here's a big thing to keep in mind. And it's something that I've tried to point out to people as often as possible is, okay, that might be my max amount for my pre-approval, but here's my max amount per month that I can afford. Whatever that may be. Let's say you're comfortable with a $1,600 mortgage payment per month and no more, right? That's as high as you can go. And so, you talk to your lender and you found out, hey, my payment's going to be $1,595 a month. Perfect. That's great. Well, keep in mind one very important detail: property taxes. Whatever we find you, more than likely it's going to be in an area that appreciates in property value. More than likely, and especially lately, everything has been. So year after year, when that property gets reassessed and all of a sudden the county says it's worth more and worth more and worth more, your property taxes go up, your monthly payment goes up. And so if you're maxed out at $1,600 per month and your initial house payment is $1,595 per month and you think, hey, that's good, that's right where I want to be. Well, then a couple years later, all of a sudden it's $1,650 per month. Well, it's a little bit higher than I wanted to be, but I guess I can make that work. Maybe a few less trips to Starbucks, I can make that work. But then the year after that, it's $1,700. Well, now I've got to cut Netflix and maybe a couple more packs of ramen. But it goes up. It goes up. Year after year, your payments go up, right? So build that in too. But this is all, trust me, this is valuable, useful knowledge. When you buy a house, you want to come in, whatever you think you can afford every month, come in a couple hundred under. I know it's weird. Here's a salesman talking about how you need to spend less money. It's the truth, though. You have to be in a good situation for the long run, right? You can look at what's right in front of you when you're buying a house, but you have to look at this as more than likely it's a 30-year situation. You're locking in. Almost everybody locks into a 30-year mortgage. If you can do a 15, great. If you're paying cash, awesome. But most people lock in 30-year mortgage. So you have to look down the road. What's this going to look like in 5 years? What's this going to look like in 10 years? And speaking of, a question I always ask people, and this is good to know: what is your 5-year plan? What is your 10-year plan? This is going to affect the houses that we look at and the offer that you might potentially make. Is this your forever house? Right? If you're like, hey, in 5 years, I want to be out of here. Okay, well, guess what? Now we have to find you a deal, right? Not a market. We got to find you something below market value. You're probably going to have to put a little bit of work into it. You're going to have to be able to build, add value to that when you go paint and put in new flooring. You're going to have to be able to get a pretty good deal on a house in order to be out in 5 years and put some money in your pocket. Because remember, we're making an investment here too, right? It's not just a house. This is a big investment. Now, 10 years, you got a little more flexibility. Market's going to change in 10 years. Theoretically, the property value is going to go up quite a bit. You're going to, you're going to pay some off of the principal. So your wiggle room is going to be a little bit different. You can maybe get a little bit closer to that market value. You can even pay at market value, right? You don't have to necessarily go in and do a bunch of remodeling and add value to the property. That's going to change things. But it's still, I'm going to say, hey man, or ma'am, whoever, I wouldn't go over this amount. Even if you're going to be here for 10 years, you're still overpaying a little bit if you go here with your offer. Now, if it's your forever home, this is it. I don't want to move again. This is where we're going to be. We are living out the rest of our days right here, this house. Well, then you have the most flexibility, right? Because 5 years, 10 years, who cares? This is just where you want to be. You found the perfect house. And so if you ask me, Eric, am I overpaying by 10 grand on this? I might say, yeah, but you're staying here forever. This is your plan. Now, if some things happen, life happens. If you call me in 5 years and say I need to sell it, we might have a problem on our hands, but just know that on the front end. But if this is the place that you want to be and you have no intentions of moving and you want to this is it. This is all for you. Well, then what's another 5 grand, right? To have your place. The market value isn't that important to you at that point because we found your house. So these are the things, and sometimes I just get to rambling. This is one of the problems with me doing this by myself. All right. So I feel like I've sufficiently covered people just getting into the market for the first time. Things are different if you have done this before a few times. You already have a realtor that you work with, that you trust, that you like, that you've had good transactions with, and we have made you money on your transactions. We found you one, you sold it with us, put a good chunk of change in your pocket, went and bought a new one, did it again, that kind of stuff. When you've been through it, you don't need to know as much as far as what do I do, right? But first time buyers, it's a big scary world out there, and I get it. So to reiterate, first things first, find a realtor, go from there. And I told you how to find a realtor. All right, what are we, 27 minutes in? Good God, how did I talk for 27 minutes? Okay. I want to get into selling a little bit too, but maybe I save that. Maybe I save that for next time. We shut this down at about 30 minutes. I want to eat dinner. Yeah. All right. I appreciate you tuning in. Next week, I will have a guest on as well as the following week, but at some point in there, I'm probably going to squeeze in another one about, selling. There's a lot to get into, and it is like that time is here. Selling time is here. So sooner rather than later, I'm going to put one out there about selling, all the things to consider, all the avenues to go down for that. So I appreciate you tuning in again. Everybody, this is less for the realtors. You guys already know this stuff. This is more for the public. I want to reach everybody if I can. So again, let me hit this music. I'm Eric Pettigo. I'm with the Real Estate Group in Springfield, Illinois. This is Real Estate for Real, and I appreciate you tuning in. I will see you next week.